someone call me Snorra. Hooray, hooray, hooray. One morning, I shot an elephant in my pajamas. How we got in my pajamas, I don't know. Have you heard that one? My mother was a stage mother. Her brother was Al Sheen of Gallagher and Sheen. Oh, Mr. Gallagher, what's on your mind this morning, Mr. Sheen? Absolutely, Mr. Gallagher, positively, Mr. Sheen. And my mother figured that if a schnook like her brother could make it in show business, so could his son. What's your name, sir? Maybe I can help you out.
My name's Ron.
Here's Ron. Right, here's Ron.
Now, the award-winning actor Frank Ferrante is bringing to the stage a Chapel off Chapel, his acclaimed portrayal of the legendary comedian Groucho Marx. Groucho Marx was known for his one-liners, his anecdotes and his songs. The man behind Groucho is on the line now. Frank, nice to have you with us here in Melbourne.
Oh, I appreciate it. It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good to catch up with you, mate. It really is. Tell me, Groucho, how did it all start with you?
Well, when I grew up in California, in Los Angeles, and when I was a boy, about 9 years old, I saw a Marx Brother movie. And this was in the 70s. And I never laughed so hard. It was Groucho, Harpo, and Chico Marx in A Day at the Races. And he was so irreverent and so wildly funny that I had to see more. So I went into my local library and started researching the Marx Brothers and comedy in general. And I started studying acting, became an actor, and this one-man show that I do about Groucho for the last 30 years is what emerged. And Groucho Marx's son, Arthur Marx, hired me when he saw me at my university in Southern California.
Yes, I read really, about that. That's phenomenal, isn't it? Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. So 30-odd years of doing this, it must be just so popular. You go back in those days of the 1940s and, you know, mention Groucho Marx, the Marx Brothers, they are just so famous, aren't they?
Well, yeah, you know, he's going through a resurgence right now. I know, right, the Marx Brothers and Groucho. Half a dozen books have come out on him this past year. They just restored the first 5 Marx Brothers movies, Coconuts, Animal Crackers, Monkey Business, Duck Soup. So he's as popular in some ways as ever. They're going through a real, like I said, real renaissance right now. And I think basically people want to laugh hard. And I've been doing the show. The show, you don't really have to be a Marx Brothers fan. I've learned to really get into the show because it's wildly fun. He was a great physical comedian and a great verbal comedian. He combined them really beautifully. And my show, it demonstrates that it's very physical and very fast moving. And there's a lot of improvisation in the show. So it's got songs and stories about Groucho and his life and times. But it's also I think what sets it apart is the improvisation.
Frank, what have you found out about his life from that research and that playing of him?
Well, you know, basically, you know, the funny thing is basically he was a serious man. I think people thought he was always on, but he was really, you know, he never made it past the 6th grade, so he was self-educated. So he read, you know, he was constantly reading. He kept a dictionary in his car. And I think he was self-conscious about the fact that he didn't have an education, really, advanced education. And so he really made up for it with his own hard work. And that shows up in his wit and the wordplay and the puns and kind of the quick thinking. And that to me is maybe the most significant thing. And he's so, you know, it's his irreverent. He always felt like an outsider. And so a lot of his humor is commenting on what goes on in the world. And he always takes down, you know, people in power as a result, lawyers, doctors, professors. And it really comes from his humble beginnings.
Wouldn't he have fun today if he was alive with the Trump situation that's going on in the States?
Oh, he'd have a field day. You know, he would have a field day. You know, I met him when I was a boy.
Did you?
Groucho Marx, and I was 13 years old. And now I was completely like, and there were millions of us who loved him when we were kids, when he was still alive. He was an old man. And I met him when he was 85, and this relates to what you're asking. When he was 85 years old, my father took me to see him live. Barely, but he was there. He was there. Yeah. And Groucho shows up, and he can barely move. He's got his trademark beret on, his little white mustache, thick glasses, and he's shuffling to the podium. And there's 1,000 people there to see him speak. And I stuck to him like a duckling, and I'm following Groucho to the podium. Yeah. And I sit at Groucho's feet, and he's mumbling. You could barely hear him. and someone asked Groucho the question, Groucho, and we all thought he was going to, drop dead, until someone asked the question, Groucho, are you making any new Marx Brothers movies? And he looked up slowly and said, no, I'm answering stupid questions. So, the body was, and everyone roared, and it got everything going. But I asked him a question, to get back to your, so it was beautiful.
Yeah.
I mean, even though the body was shot, the mind was still cranking away. And, I asked him, I knew he hated Richard Nixon, our president, Nixon, who was impeached, right, right prior, was going through an impeachment trial, or a case there. And I said, what do you think about Nixon? He said, Nixon ought to be in jail. And so he had very strong opinions, and he would have been having an absolute field day with the elections, and like we all are. Can't wait till they're over.
So do you bring any of that into your interpretation now? Any of the current stuff?
It's certainly influenced by that. I think one of the reasons that there's right now in the U.S. there's a huge interest in Groucho. All you do is Google, and you'll see that every major magazine and publication is doing a story on Groucho and the Marx Brothers, and Duck Soup is in essence an anti-war film and makes fun of politicians, and so he's become relevant again and pertinent. So I'm seeing the bigger audiences, even bigger audiences, and younger people coming to the show, and that's but specifically I don't reference Trump or Clinton, but you get a sense of him being a truth teller. Groucho. Calls a spade, just calls it as he sees it.
What about his big, thick mow he had? Was that for real?
The big, thick what?
Mow. His moustache.
Oh, is that what you call it? No, well, he used grease paint. He used a cream stick.
Did he?
And he put on fake eyebrows, fake mustache. The round glasses didn't have lenses in it. I mean, it really was a mask, a clown's mask, which gave Groucho kind of license to do whatever he wanted to do, because he was protected by this armor, by this mask. And so he got away with a lot as this character. And I loved when he would do scenes with Margaret Dumont, who was his famous foil. And she embodied, the establishment, the rich and powerful. And he would take her down. It was so fun to see him attack her. And they had this kind of perverse romance in all those 7 movies. He'd say things like, I can see you right now in the kitchen bending over a hot stove, but I can't see the stove. Come, say the word, you'll never see me again, Gloria. I'll meet you tonight under the moon. I can see it now, just you and the moon. You wear a necktie, so I'll know you. I mean, he was just brutally funny with her, and I love doing that. I do a whole homage to Margaret Dumont, and I talk about Harpo and Chico's brothers, and the idea is, what would it have been like to experience this great funny man live in 1934? And he never worked solo. He always worked with his brothers, the Marx Brothers.
Yes.
And I try to conjure that up. And the look, as you were saying, was this great look. It's maybe the most recognizable face of comedy is that mustache and the eyebrows and the cigar and the glasses, and of course he had the great walk and that. But when he got older, he grew a mustache.
Yeah, he did he? Yeah, well, I've seen a couple of grabs of you doing this, and you dress up very, very much the same. Your mask is on too, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I get to get lost. I've been doing it for so long. Every night I get to come up with new jokes, and every show is different because I have the freedom to play within that character.
Yes.
And to mess around with the material, with the audience, and it's really joyful for me.
Well, you do involve the audience quite a lot. I looked at one grab I saw on YouTube the other night, and you've got people up there dancing and things. So it's very interactive, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, I think that's what makes it fun. I mean, again, not everyone knows who he is or is familiar, but even though I do the songs like there's a great song he sang called Lydia the Tattooed Lady.
Yes,
Lydia the Tattooed Lady. Yeah. Lydia, oh Lydia, say, have you met Lydia? Lydia the Tattooed Lady. She has eyes that folks adore so, and a torso, even more so. I mean, so they're really clever lyrics. The same guys who wrote The Wizard of Oz, the music, wrote for Groucho that song. But so you have the kind of the stuff the material you'd find in his movies and his writings and his television show and interviews. But then I do a lot of great stories. But again, what you're saying is so true. It's that improv, that fact that I can go and and play with an audience, and I could make something up on the spot. It feels part stand up, it's part theater, it's part musical. The show's become a real hybrid of styles. And it's got a great intimate feel.
Well, you've been touring you've been touring right around Australia, here in Melbourne at the a great venue. You haven't been there yet, I don't think, but a great venue, Chapel of Chapel, and you're starting on the 14th of November on to the 19th at 8 o'clock. There's a 2 p.m. Saturday matinee on the 19th. Looking forward to seeing you there, Frank. Before you go, the name Ferrante, you're not in any way related to the pianist, are you?
No, there was right for your listeners. It was Ferrante and Teicher was a great. They were a duo pianist team, and they sold millions of records covering various hits from the 60s and 70s and 80s even. And no, I'm not related. My whole life I've been asked, Frank, are you related to?
I thought you might have been.
Ferrante and Teicher. And then when I went to New York to do the show I've done the show in New York and London and everywhere. In fact, I've done over 400 cities. And this will be in Melbourne. This will be a premiere for me. But to answer your question, when I was in New York in my early 20s, I got a letter that says, "Dear Mr. Ferrante, people are asking me if I'm related to you. Keep up the good work, and the time for a new generation of Ferrantes." And it was signed Art Ferrante of Ferrante and Teicher.
Oh, go on. Oh, isn't that brilliant? Well, you must have been related somewhere down the line in Italy or somewhere, I
hope so.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a great talent. For those, he's worth Googling or YouTubing Ferrante and Teicher. Amazing.
My word. Good to catch up, pal. We'll see you on the night. And in the meantime, enjoy your stay in Australia, and particularly here in Melbourne.
I can't wait. Thank you.
Take care,
Hello,
pal.
I must be going.